Hi, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and also to people on the replay. It's great to have you here. And today it's Bill and I chatting about a subject which is very dear to Bill's heart. But before we get going, please take the time to like the video so that we get noticed by the algorithms. Click on the notifications bell, subscribe, and then make sure that you get notified whenever we've got any of these sessions coming up. And also, if you're in the audience live, please make sure that if you'd like to ask a question about anything that Bill and I are talking about, then do put your comment in the chat, and we will discuss your question live in the studio. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring Bill in a minute, but today we thought it might be nice to talk about a kind of really deep dive into the basics of problem solving. And this is something I know, Bill, maybe you can explain. This is something that's very much in your wheelhouse, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's big companies, small companies, or even individuals, a lot of people, um, unknowingly go about this the wrong way, and they spend most of their time thinking about solutions instead of the problem itself. It kind of goes to the I'm paraphrasing Einstein, but he said when he was presented with a problem, he said in an hour or whatever to solve it, he said I'd spend 50 minutes or whatever understanding the problem and then the last 10 minutes solving it. And that's exactly how we should approach it as entrepreneurs.
So could I maybe just to ask the very simple question, what in your view is a problem?
Well, a problem is anything that keeps someone from getting to an outcome that they want. So you have a person who's here and they want to get here. What's in between there is a problem. And problem is a negative word. We think of problems as negative things. They're emotional and they're bad. But problems can be either not getting enough of the right thing, or either being in the wrong, having the wrong thing, or not getting enough of the right thing. So there's some problems that are due to passions. Hey, I love this thing and I'm not getting enough of it in my life. So some problems are like pains, and others are passions that become painful when you don't get enough of them. And they're actually very interesting things to look at. I had the opportunity I remember the first time I had the opportunity to actually look at a problem that was just people being too short on a passion. It was really refreshing because you were helping people get this thing they really, really wanted and loved. And it was just a different kind of thing. It was fun.
Yeah, that's interesting. So problems are about things that are lacking or that are our pain points. But maybe equally on the opposite side, we should be talking about opportunity seeking as well. Because if somebody has a kind of genuinely original thought and thinks, if I do this thing that nobody's thought of, is assuming I can tell people how they can benefit from it, then that opportunity might actually make people's lives easier. So I don't know. Would you say that those kind of things are opportunities for launching businesses as well, or?
Absolutely. Sometimes sometimes invention is the mother of necessity. Nobody knew they needed a smartphone before the first smartphone came out. I mean, no one was banging on the doors of government buildings saying, we have a right to smartphones. You need to create one. I mean, no one was saying that, and yet the need was there. People just didn't understand it. So, it's sort of a Maslow's hierarchy sort of thing. That whole pyramid is fraught with things that we would call problems.
That's interesting.
How do I get from here to here? Now I want to get from here to here. And you just work your way up. And the problems become different from the bottom to the top, but they can be equally painful.
Well, I'm just wondering what opportunity the smartphone actually took advantage of. I mean, I guess they were cool things to have, weren't they? I guess, and they were designed well. So.
Yeah, well, and it goes back to the thing I was just talking about. Is they gave people more of what they loved. I love social media. My phone gives it to me now. Now I have it everywhere I go.
Right.
I love being in contact with people I care about. Now I have it all the time. I love watching videos, and when I've got spare time, I love being entertained when I have time to kill. This phone
Yes.
does it for me all the time. So it gave them lots of things that they love more.
And I guess the other thing I remember when smartphones first came out, you know, one of the key components of that was the invention of the App Store, where you could actually go and get these new things called apps.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when smartphones first came out, people went crazy downloading all kinds of apps because they could do all sorts of cool things. You know, like you point it at the sky and it tells you what stars it is, or you can tell how loud the traffic is going past you because it's a decibel meter or something like that.
Yeah, the apps appealed to people with every possible hobby or interest, and it gave them the opportunity to experience it better.
Yeah, and I guess it's a product that's slap bang in the middle of what early adopters like, isn't it? So I guess that's another thing, really, isn't it? That you need to, as well as having your why. Oops, I think I crashed.
I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm back.
Yep, there you are.
Yeah. As well as having your why, how do you make sure that the problem you're solving is something that early adopters actually want to solve, as opposed to mass market people who might not actually get to hear about you until later on?
Yeah, that first step is falling in love with the problem. You see a problem in the world, and you fall in love with it. And falling in love with it means learning everything you can about it. And that learning starts with the people that have the most acute version of that problem or that pain. And that is your early adopter, the person who is willing to do something radical to solve it because the pain is so intense. So it's finding those people, looking for people that are currently trying to solve and maybe failing miserably. Understanding that moment where they're trying to solve it, what they're doing, how what they're doing is working, why they thought it would work, and why it isn't working. Now, there's a subset of those people also on the adoption curve that comes even before them. Those are the innovators. Those are actually people that do successfully solve their own problems. So you can find a few of them, and you can look and see what they built, because that might be your kind of crib notes for your own design process. But it really has to start though with those early adopters. You know, what are they willing to do, and then you go from, with the early adopters on that left side of the adoption curve, that's design innovation, that's product innovation. But then to get to the other side of the curve with the majorities and the laggards, that then becomes marketing innovation, where you have to take something that works for these people that have the most acute version of the problem. Now we have to get to the people that aren't going to solve it until they can see, hundreds of 5-star Google reviews, and that their neighbors tried it. So
yes.
So yeah, start with those early adopters, because they will help you, because they want to solve it so badly. And if they understand that you're trying to solve it, they will bend over backwards for you. I mean, I've had customer experiences like that where the customers they'll come with us, they'll help design, they'll even help pay for the process because they want to solve it so badly.
Yes, I remember when Gmail first came out, they were actually restricting access to Gmail to start with, only to kind of you had to apply to get a Gmail address.
Mm-hmm. Pinterest did the same thing early on. It became this very it was economics. It was a scarce commodity, and people were trying to hey, you're already in, can you get me in? Almost like getting into a fancy country club or something.
Yeah, that's right. I remember there was a certain cachet about being important enough to have a Gmail address.
Exactly. Not the case anymore, is it?
Well, no. As I've I won't share my complications, but essentially I'm having problems with Gmail at the moment. So anyway, I'm bringing on a question that we've had from the audience. So if like Simon, you would like to ask a question, please do so in the comments, whether you're on LinkedIn, on YouTube, or on Facebook. And Simon's asking, is there like particular kinds of problems that we want to solve for customers, Bill?
Well, really good problems to solve are intrinsically emotional. They're because that's what you have to drive a solution. You have to have someone who wants to do something for emotional reasons, so then that you can test that moment when you present your solution to them to see if they snatch it out of your hand. without even thinking. And this is the old system 1, system 2 thinking. People do things first on emotion, and then they'll justify later on and work through it with logic. But it's that initial reaction. Can you trigger an emotional response in someone when they see your solution? And that comes from learning about the moment of that customer and their problem really, really well, so that you can disrupt that moment with your solution, almost like a bookmark.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon. Yeah, going back to the nature of a problem, a problem might be multi-dimensional. So if you are wanting to solve somebody's problem, do you advise to actually go out and solve the entire problem, or just part of a problem to make it marginally better? If you're, let's say, building an MVP or whatever, and then you can build features into it later. I mean, would you advise going to try and solve the whole thing in one go, or do it incrementally?
No, dissect the problem, because your perception of what the problem is always going to be biased anyway, because you're generally not the customer. You're looking in at something and you say, well, here's what their problem is, and that may or may not be right, and it may not. It may be a larger problem but you can at least start solving in a small way. The thing to do with your behavioral experimentation early on is what's the smallest thing that I can build to test my riskiest assumption about what the customer is willing to do to solve. That could be something as simple as, hey, would they be willing to download an app? Would they be willing to come to a meeting? Would they be willing to refer a friend? Behaviors that tell us, hey, they really are interested in solving this problem, and they're willing to do these things to do it. Then you can always expand. You can always flesh out your solution, but you really need to identify what is that key moment that you need to solve for first, that brings them in. Because too big of a solution could look like a hassle. It could be too costly. It could take too long. Understand what's that smallest thing that the customer is willing to do to solve the smallest part of the problem.
So I guess part of problem solving is also, I knew a management consultant lady once who used to train people on the concept of what's the least I can do to make a difference. So in other words, it has to be easy and it has to be fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if it takes a month for you to actually download a thing and put it into action, and you need a manual to actually, learn how to do something, people aren't going to do that, are they? So
no, if you go online and you look up MVP, or you look up various things, you'll get a kind of a classic little picture that comes up of it starts with a skateboard, then it goes to a bicycle, then it goes to a motorcycle, and then it goes to a car. And the idea is if you run into someone and you understand their problem to be, this person has problems getting around town. They need to get places, and they can't do it. Well, the solution, the most expensive solution you can throw at them is an automobile. And they may not be able to purchase one. That might be part of their problem. They can't afford transportation. Right. But what the analogy says is, well, let's hand them a skateboard. The skateboard, we can get a secondhand skateboard for $5. So would they be willing to buy a skateboard to get them around town a little bit faster than walking? And there may be other problems there, but it's an analogy that tells us that, and it isn't build a small car first and then a big car, because that's still the same amount of complexity and it's a similar cost. What is that smallest thing that we can show the customer that shows that our understanding of the problem is there? If we give them something that will help them get around town, and they won't proverbially pick up the skateboard in this case, then maybe our understanding of the problem is wrong, or there may be additional layers that we need to understand. And the cool thing is we can run those experiments very inexpensively and very quickly, so that we don't have to wait a week, a month, or a year and spend $100,000 to find out.
No, and how big a sample size would you pick to run these experiments, Bill?
Yeah. So one of the things that you run into, especially if you're in a big company and you're up against a marketing team or something like that, is they'll say, "Well, there's no statistical significance to your experiment here. You only had 3 people or 5 people." So, well, at this point, we're not looking for statistical significance. We're simply looking for a signal. That's a lot of S's. We're just looking for a signal, because the signal allows us then to justify doing something that does bring us some statistical significance. If we can get 5 or 10 or 15 people to ride the skateboard, then we can go to marketing and say, okay, we understand the problem. They're willing to do this to get transportation around town.
Mm.
We can do this more expensive prototype now because we feel confident that it won't be a bad investment because of the behaviors that we've seen.
So in terms of the problems again, how do you know that the solution that you've come up with isn't solving half a problem or 1.5 problems, that it's actually solving one problem, which is your MVP? And I guess it's got something to do with your experimentation again, hasn't it? So
yeah, so experiments aren't done in a black box, then you walk away. You present your target, your test customer, that early adopter customer, with your solution. You watch them as they see it, use it or don't, finish using it, and then and you talk with them through this whole process, including afterwards, and you ask them about how it. You don't ask them closed-ended questions. You ask them open-ended questions. Hey, what's the first thing you thought of when you saw that skateboard? And they're going to say, it looked really, it looked old and it didn't look safe, so I didn't get on it. And so in those moments, you learn more about the problem, so that your next iteration of your product says, okay, skateboard's not safe enough. So, hey, tell me about safe forms of transportation that you see people using around town. So understand their idea of what safety is, because again, your idea is different than theirs. You may enjoy riding a skateboard; it's perfectly safe to you, but to this person it wasn't. So you keep talking with your customers. You keep giving them every opportunity to tell you what they're feeling, because that's where insights come from.
Do you have like a rule of thumb for how long you need to stay in that process to find out information about the product that you're thinking of building?
Well, it's kind of until you get to the point where you've got a product that's scalable, repeatable, and is solving their problem. But of course, you never leave your customer. You just change phases. Okay, hey, we have something now that solves the problem. They're happy with it. They're telling everyone they know about it. We're even getting some early majority customers, that sort of thing. But continuous improvement is a type of innovation as well that needs to be there. And it's talking to the customers. Hey, how's it working for you now? How is it working in the face of additional technology and products that are entering the marketplace? You never walk away from your customer, because when you do, that's when your product begins to slide.
Okay, so let's assume that through a process of experimentation, an entrepreneur has worked out a problem that is worth solving commercially for someone. How do they tell people that that's what they've done? Because I mean, communication, the fact that hey, I've got this great solution to your problem. That's a really big thing, isn't it? Oh.
Yeah, in the early phases, those early adopter customers are going to be the ones that help you. They're going to be writing the reviews. They're going to be. You have to build a product that doesn't just solve their problem, that gets them to satisfied. You need to get them one level above satisfied, which is passionate. You need them out working for you, because marketing is the most expensive way to get customers.
Yes.
If the final thing that you build once you've built this great product with your early adopter customers is you build the engine of growth. And the engine of growth is not through advertising or marketing, traditional sort of marketing. It's through the existing customers you have. How do you use them to bolster any of those types of things that you're doing online? How do you make it about the experiences that people are having instead of necessarily the features and benefits of your product? Because that, again, triggers the emotional response of people who have a similar problem. So, and that is that second phase. That's the marketing innovation piece of it. How do I use what I've learned and the people that are getting value from my product to get it out to the masses, to really to grow.
Right. And thinking about you've got a problem that you know that you can solve for people, and you've got a way of talking about it. How do you think it's really important for the people who are coming up with these solutions to be aligned with their potential customers and to have a credible story to say, this is why I came up with this idea, and I know you guys because I'm one of you, kind of thing, and I've come up with this thing because I understand your problems from the inside, sort of thing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely essential. What it is, that the story that you come up with isn't your story. It's it's an amalgamation of their stories. I talked to Sarah, and I talked to Michael, and I talked to John, and I talked to Mary, and hear the stories they shared with me. So working with them, we built this thing. And you do see some companies kind of tell their product story this way. Hey, we worked with these people, and they helped us build this thing. And now here's how here's how it's solving their problem. So that could be very much part, especially nowadays when people are looking for ethical companies or companies that have a philosophy, or that are highly consumer focused and socially aware and those sort of things. These sort of messages and this sort of strategy for messaging, it becomes more and more important.
Okay, so just to put a ribbon on this section, because we spent a long time, because I do think it's worth maybe even expanding this conversation into next week, really, because there's such a big topic. Mm-hmm. I mean, to put a bow on this section, it's how would you advise people to make sure that they express their vision clearly and make sure that they are articulate and precise about expressing their purpose as well for what they're doing?
Test it on the people that should be customers of that message. I mean, crafting messages is just like crafting products. A message is a product. Everything's a product. If it's designed to affect some sort of change in the world, in a person or a situation, it's a product. So it means it undergoes the same design as a physical product. So we designed this product for someone. Now we're going to design the message that's going to get other people to use it as well. And that message is designed from the experiences we had developing the product. And it's going to share that journey, and it's going to bring people in through that story. And as you know, I know you're a consumer of stories. Stories connect with people in a highly emotional way, and in ways that are very subconscious, and get us to do those things, those triggers that we talked about, get us to do things without running through the logic cycle.
Yeah, that's actually one definition of the law of attraction, actually. I don't know whether you've come across that, where the law of attraction is that what you need to do is to find a way of triggering people's memories, mm-hmm. and that memory is associated with a positive emotion.
Yeah,
if you can get people to reminisce about things in a positive way, then they feel warmly towards it and are attracted to it like a magnet. So if you can find a way of triggering that kind of visceral response in people, then you're onto a winner when it comes to a new product or a service, I think.
Yeah, there's a design consultancy called in the United States called Olson Zaltman. And Zaltman himself designed this process called ZMED, Zaltman Metaphor Elicitation Technique, where he gets people to what he calls the deep metaphors, those emotional things that are more instinct than conscious. One of the stories was that I heard at one point was with Coca-Cola. They talked to people and they said, "I remember having a Coca-Cola with my grandfather." Well, this is one of those deep metaphors, that belonging, the family, these things that they're almost hindbrain sort of stuff, but they are deeply impactful on us, and they will lead us around like a leash if the right person gets a hold of it. So, companies like Coca-Cola can, if you watch their advertising, people are having a Coke with someone that they care about. It's because that's what people remember. Hey, Coke might be this old brand, but yeah, I had one with my grandpa. I had one with my grandma. And these things will drive you to purchase the product because it recaptures those deep emotional memories. So, embracing that sort of methodology. I know it's a trademark thing, but you can look online and see the types of techniques that Zaltman uses. And it's fascinating. I've attempted it with some teams of my own, and with great results.
I mean, they've always been pretty smart with their advertising, Coke, haven't they? I mean, back in the 1920s, they even redefined what Santa Claus looked like.
In essence, they invented our modern Santa Claus. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think originally Santa Claus had a green tunic. I think so. They just changed the color of the kind of coat he was wearing. So.
And I think he was thinner too.
Yeah. More like kind of Gandalf,
He was more like a wizard than a jolly elf.
He can fit down the chimney a bit easier than the
yeah. The story doesn't all check out there, but they sold it to us and we bought it.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about what Coke actually is. It's just a secret recipe and it's sugary water, isn't it? So it's kind of interesting how they've made a loss out of quite a little, really, isn't it? So
yeah, some of the great brands in the world are better described as marketing companies that just happen to sell product X.
Yeah, they're selling a lifestyle, aren't they? Okay.
Yeah, and you love this? Okay, well, here's the product to make it happen.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, going back to, this feeling of being able to express things clearly and with conciseness and accuracy. How important do you think it is to have like an elevator pitch that you can just say if people say what does this product do? Do you think it's important to have a brief way of telling people what that is, or do you think it comes across as being a bit pat, a bit kind of too polished if you're able to do that?
It will if it's not genuine. So yes, you need to have that because number one, being able to do that shows you understand your customer and the value proposition, the who, what, when, where, why, and how of the problem and your customer's experience of it, and how your solution solves it. So number one, that's a great exercise to show that you understand it, and then auditioning that with potential customers or existing customers and asking where it's missing the mark or how they feel when they hear that. Again, it's tuning that product of the pitch to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's solving the problem it's supposed to solve, which is transmitting information about your value proposition to someone who doesn't know about it.
And do you think you need more than one for different audiences, or do you think like one covers everybody?
Well, it depends. You may have a couple of different customers with different situations. You may have a young mother customer and likes your product for a certain reason. You may have an older customer who likes your product for a different reason. I mean, cell phones. People use cell phones today. Young people use them for social media. Older folks may use them for connecting to their families, or other people may use them for apps or for their work. So understanding why a group of people uses your product then helps you tailor that pitch, because you don't want to miss the mark. You don't want to give the young mother pitch to the construction worker, because he's not going to understand the value.
Or it might be.
You got somebody with a motorcycle in the neighborhood, don't you?
Very loud motorcycle. I'm sorry about that.
Wow.
Guys. Yeah, and I guess another thing to bear in mind is, I mean, if you have an elevator pitch, the language you're using, you might have different versions of your elevator pitch, which are essentially saying the same thing, but you're using different language for different types of people. So if you're selling to a sales director, you might not use the same words for the same concept or the same, pitch as you would do to a member of the general public or to your young mum, for example, as you were saying. That will be a different set of words that you'd use.
Yeah, and there's an analogy today with AI. The LLMs, the large language models. The LLM for your young mother is might be a different LLM for your construction worker or your elderly user.
Yes.
So in that initial process, an important part of that initial process when you're designing and you're really understanding your customer, it's listening to them, but it's also hearing the words that they use, the kinds of words that they use, because words have meanings, and it's always great to ask them, especially when they use a metaphor. People use metaphors all the time. Don't ever let a metaphor go by without asking what it means. Say
Yes.
when someone says, it was like pulling teeth to get that solved. Say, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah, pulling teeth, that's bad. It's painful. No, stop. Say, wow, pulling teeth, that's painful. Tell me more about it. And then in that moment, you learn these amazing things, because metaphors are mental shorthand for really big ideas, and the person's trying to save time by using the metaphor, or they're trying to save your time because they think
Right.
that they're wasting your time. So unpacking those words that they use, even those, if you hear the same metaphor over and over again from a group of customers, then you want to incorporate that into your message. Yeah, it's not like pulling teeth anymore. Yeah, or if that's what they're all saying, because then you become one of them, and people buy from people that are like them. Oh, this person gets me. Yeah, it is like pulling teeth. I say that all the time. I know we're just using a silly analogy, but
Mm.
I remember, Zaltman talks about this a lot. Again, he was, he's into metaphors big. So am I. There's a book called Metaphors We Live By. It's an older book, but it's just wonderful. If you really want to geek out on metaphors, but people
Well,
use them like every so many seconds.
yeah, is there a particular book you'd like to recommend?
Yeah, it's called Metaphors We Live By. My little pile of books that got relocated recently.
I will make sure I put a link to that in the chat, because I think people might find that useful.
It's an older book. It might be 80s or 70s. The copy I have, I got from Amazon. It was used and smelled like somebody's basement, but it worked fine. So
well, I think, just in conclusion of this part of actually defining what a problem is, I think with the fact that we now have AI to produce different variations on a theme for things, then the granularity of the messages that we can come up with for different audiences as to how we express ourselves when we're defining a problem and coming up with answers, there's no real excuse not to actually get that much more granular now.
Yeah, feed your interviews. Transcribe your interviews with your customers. Feed them into Claude or ChatGPT or whatever your favorite place is.
Put the transcripts into ChatGPT and see what comes up. Yeah.
Now, AIs do have biases just like we do, but at least they'll have different ones. So the angle that they'll come at might be surprising to us, and they may see things that we don't see because we just disregarded it.
Yeah. Well, next time there's a big conversation I can have with you, Bill, about social listening. We don't have time for that now, but maybe we can incorporate that into next week.
That sounds
so anyway. So thank you so much, everybody. That's that half an hour's gone really quickly. Bill, is there maybe people can get hold of you if they'd like to chat with you offline?
Yeah, I'm at LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/Bill Murray Mentor, I think, with dashes between it. BILL-MURRAY-mentor. I'd love to talk to you about problems you're trying to solve. It's kind of my thing.
Problem guy. Yeah.
There's joy in solving problems. It sounds funny, but it is.
Yeah, and obviously we're both Ronnies at 12 Ronnies, so you can always get hold of us at 12 Ronnies.
Absolutely. Great place to start.
It says on the ticker tape that's going at the bottom of the screen, go to 12ronnies.com. And if you want to find out where you are on the journey to launching a startup, scroll down a little bit and you'll see a big red button, and just press that and you can take our quiz. So just remind people to like the video, click the notification bell so that you know when the next one's coming up. And we'll be back at you next Wednesday at the same time for another conversation. And I think this was a good one, Bill, and I think maybe we should carry on talking about problems. Because I think this is a very fruitful conversation. It's a big area to cover. So
absolutely.
Anyway, so thank you very much. Bye, everybody. See you next time.